Good evening, everyone. Today, I wanted to talk about the Canton Network. Right now, as you're watching this, there's a blockchain that's processing 6 trillion in real-world assets. Goldman Sachs is using it, BNP Paribas is using it, HSBC is using it, but you've probably never heard of it. It's called, again, the Canton Network. And it's completely different from every blockchain that you may know. The Canton Network is a first privacy-enabled public layer 1 blockchain, and it's designed specifically for regulated financial institutions. Unlike Bitcoin and Ethereum, Canton processes over 6 trillion in tokenized real-world assets using US Treasury repos, syndicated loans, corporate bonds. This section really reveals why major banks are choosing Canton over traditional blockchains. So let me give you the numbers. Canton Network currently hosts, again, over 6 trillion in tokenized real-world assets. That's not speculative crypto tokens. We're talking about actual treasury repos, corporate bonds, and synthetic loans. Now, here's what makes this insane. That 6 trillion is being processed on a public blockchain, not a private consortium chain, not a permissioned database, but a real public layer 1 that anyone can connect to. Here's the genius part. Canton combines the benefits of public blockchain, transparency, auditability, composability with institutional grade privacy. Each transaction is visible to the parties involved. Goldman Sachs can't see BNP Paribas transactions and vice versa. The platform processes over 700 connected firms, from financial powerhouses to crypto-native companies. They're handling 300 billion in daily US Treasury repo trades. Now that's real financial activity that most blockchains don't have combined. So why haven't you heard of this? Because Canton isn't trying to replace dollars with internet money. They're basically digitizing existing financial infrastructure. And that's why institutions are using it. Let's talk a little bit more technically. The proof of stakeholder. It's the consensus mechanism that changes everything. All right. You know how Bitcoin uses the proof of work where miners complete to validate blocks. Ethereum uses proof of stake where validators lock up tokens. Canton does neither. They invented something called proof of stakeholder. Here's how it works. In each transaction, only the validators involved in a specific transaction validate it, not the entire network, just the stakeholders. Here's an example. So, if Goldman Sachs is trading a tokenized bond with Bank of America, only Goldman and Bank of America validators need to reach consensus on that transaction. HSBC's validators never even see that that transaction has happened. But wait, how do you prevent the double spend if not everyone is validating? Canton uses two-layer consensus system. Let's talk about it. Layer 1, it's a two-phase commit protocol that replicates each contract only to its stakeholders. Layer 2 is a Byzantine fault-tolerant sequencing protocol. And basically what that does is it orders encrypted transactions without reading their contents. This means that Canton can process unlimited parallel transactions because validators aren't competing. They're collaborating only when their stakeholders overlap. It's like having a replicated state machine for every possible subset of parties. Here's a key insight. Proof of stakeholder fundamentally reimagines blockchain consensus. Why should everyone validate transactions they're not a part of? This isn't just efficient, it's the only way to achieve true sub-transaction privacy on a public blockchain. It's why institutions are actually using Canton without exposing their trading strategies to their competitors. The Global Synchronizer, making atomic cross-chain transactions real. Now you might be wondering, okay, so Canton has privacy, but how does it connect different applications and assets across the network? This is where the Global Synchronizer comes in, and honestly, this might be the most important piece of infrastructure no one is talking about. The Global Synchronizer is a decentralized service that enables atomic cross-chain transactions. Atomic means all or nothing, simply put. Either every part of a multi-chain transaction succeeds, or the entire thing rolls back. No bridges, no wrap tokens, no trusted intermediaries. Think about what this enables. You could have a transaction where tokenized US Treasuries are on subnet for tokenized corporate bonds on another subnet, with USDC settlement on a third subnet, all happening simultaneously, atomically, with zero settlement risk. The Global Synchronizer uses a two-thirds majority Byzantine fault-tolerant consensus protocol. I know that's a mouthful. It's operated by independent organizations called super validators that coordinate through on-chain governance. No single party controls it. And here's what makes it different from other cross-chain solutions. The Global Synchronizer never sees transaction contents. It sequences encrypted messages and ensures atomic settlement without reading what's inside. The privacy is preserved, cross-chain composability is achieved. This is DeFi-like composability with TradFi grade privacy and control. It's truly amazing. The Global Synchronizer solves the atomic cross-chain problem that bridges can't solve because it operates at the protocol level, not as an afterthought. This is why Canton can achieve true transaction-level interoperability across independent blockchains while maintaining privacy. It's the missing infrastructure layer that makes the network of networks actually work. So you might be thinking, okay, this technology sounds impressive, but who's using it? In September of 2025, BNP Paribas and HSBC officially joined the Canton Foundation. This is the governing body that oversees the Global Synchronizer. They joined Goldman Sachs, who was already a member. Now, think about what this means, all right? These aren't crypto startups gambling on new technology. These are banks with trillions in assets under management. BNP Paribas is one of Europe's largest banks. HSBC operates globally. Goldman Sachs, this is just Goldman Sachs. Here's what mainstream media is missing. These banks didn't join Canton because it's trendy. They joined because they have actual applications that are running on it. HSBC is running their Orion platform on Canton. It's an asset tokenization platform used by institutions for primary bond issuance. BNP Paribas operates neobonds, tokenizing corporate bonds. Goldman Sachs has been actively involved since the network's early days. And they're not just using it, they're governing it. The Canton Foundation model means these institutions have a voice in the Global Synchronizer. It's transparent governance with institutional participation. That's unprecedented in blockchain. The message this sends is very clear. Wall Street believes Canton's privacy enabled public blockchain model is the future of financial infrastructure. All right, let's talk about some real numbers, not market cap, not TVL, actual financial infrastructure operating at scale. Broadridge distributed ledger repo platform known as DLR runs on Canton Network. It's processing over 8 trillion per month in repo transactions. That's trillion with a T. Now, you're not familiar with the repo markets. Let me just put this in perspective. Repo transactions are how financial institutions borrow money short term using securities as collateral. It's one of the most critical pieces of financial plumbing that keeps global markets liquid. And Broadridge is doing this basically at scale using tokenization and smart contracts, processing settlements that could traditionally take days. Now it's happening in real time with atomic execution. Here's what makes this insane. This isn't some experimental test net. This is in production. Real money, real institutions. They're processing monthly volume more than Bitcoin's entire market capitalization. The DLR platform proves that Canton's technology can handle the throughput, privacy requirements, and regulatory compliance needed for actual Wall Street infrastructure. This is what institutional blockchain adoption looks like when it's real. Most people have no idea that this is even happening because Broadridge isn't tweeting anything about going to the moon. They are quietly processing trillions of dollars because the technology actually works. Here's another key insight. Broadridge, 8 trillion a month in repo. These transactions on Canton represent a fundamental shift in how we measure blockchain success. Market cap and TVL, those are vanity metrics. Real adoption is measured by actual financial infrastructure that's replacing legacy systems with blockchain-based alternatives. Canton is winning this game while everyone is still arguing over decentralization. Now let's talk about the money. Because when Wall Street writes massive checks, you need to pay attention. In June of 2025, Digital Asset, the company behind Canton Network, they raised 135 million. The round was led by TradeWeb and DRW. But the investor list reads like this. It's the who's who of finance. Goldman Sachs, Citadel Securities, and major crypto players. In December, just a few weeks ago, they raised another 50 million, this time from the Bank of New York Mellon, NASDAQ, iCapital, and S&P Global. So now that's a total of 185 million in 6 months. But here's what you need to understand. These are venture capital firms betting on a moonshot. These are institutions that run the financial markets. NASDAQ operates exchanges, S&P Global provides market intelligence, and BNY Mellon is the world's largest custodian bank. When BNY Mellon invests in blockchain infrastructure, that's not a speculation. They're preparing for the inevitable migration of traditional assets onto a blockchain rail. They've chosen Canton as that infrastructure. Now, TradeWeb, which led the June round, processes over 1 trillion in daily transaction volume, bonds, derivatives, and EFTs. They're not investing in Canton for fun. They're using Canton's Global Synchronizer to facilitate atomic cross-domain settlements in their fixed income and derivatives trading. The convergence of TradFi titans and crypto native investors in Canton's cap table signals something profound. The walls between traditional finance and blockchain are coming down, and Canton is that bridge. Okay, here's where Canton goes from interesting to game changer. In August of 2025, they did something that's never been done before. A consortium of institutions, Bank of America, Citadel Securities, Circle, Cumberland, and some others, completed the first blockchain enabled US Treasury financing transaction with 24/7 availability and near instant atomic settlement. All right, let me break it all down. Traditional Treasury repo markets operate during business hours. Settlement takes T plus 1 or T plus 2 days. There's counterparty risk during the settlement period. But Canton's solution tokenizes the Treasury securities. It uses USDC as the settlement asset, executes the entire transaction, trade, collateral movement, and cash settlement atomically on chain, all or nothing. Either every leg completes simultaneously or nothing happens. This is what atomic settlement means: zero settlement risk, zero counterparty risk during that settlement. Available 24/7, including weekends, near instant finality instead of days. They did this as the second phase in December 2025, this month. This demonstrated this wasn't a one time PR stunt. They're building production infrastructure for continuous treasury financing on the Canton Network. The working group includes some of the biggest names in finance. Let me share a few: Bank of America, BNP Paribas, CBOE Digital, Citigroup, JP Morgan, and more. This is Wall Street's collective saying this is the future. Okay. How does Canton compare to Ethereum or Solana? And honestly, it's really the wrong question. Ethereum and Solana are optimizing for public, permissionless ecosystems where anyone can build anything. They prioritize decentralization, censorship resistance, right? And transparency. Every transaction, for the most part, is visible to everyone, at least at its layer one level. Canton is optimizing for regulated financial institutions that need privacy, compliance, and more control. Only stakeholders can see their transactions. The network can scale horizontally without limits because the validators only validate what they're a part of. Here's a real example. On Ethereum, if Goldman Sachs tokenizes a bond, everyone sees it. The counterparty, the price, the terms, everything. That's competitive disadvantage. On Canton, only the parties to that transaction sees anything. Solana boasts 65,000 transactions per second, which is quite impressive. But Canton has no upper bounds on TPS because it doesn't require a global consensus. Parallel transactions across different validator set happen simultaneously. The bottleneck is just the hardware. Here's the kicker. Canton doesn't compete with Ethereum or Solana for retail DeFi. It's building the infrastructure for institutional finance. That's an entirely different market. It's a different requirement and different customers in that sense. So while Ethereum is handling 100 billion in DeFi TVL, Canton handles 6 trillion in actual institutional assets, while Solana is processing millions of meme coin trades, right? Canton processes treasury repos. These aren't competing, they're serving completely different use cases altogether. The Canton token launched in November of 2025 as the native utility token for paying the Global Synchronizer fees, incentivizing network participants. It's currently trading around 7 cents. By year end, hopefully, we could possibly see 10. The Canton Network represents a rare opportunity to invest in infrastructure tokens that actually have real world utility beyond just speculation. Again, now I know what you're thinking. This is another L1, but what makes it different? And there are several critical reasons. Every time someone uses the Global Synchronizer for cross chain atomic transactions, they pay fees in the Canton coin. And remember, they're processing 6 trillion in real world assets. Those aren't speculative DeFi transactions. Those are real world, actual financial institutions moving money daily. The tokenomics are very interesting. The Canton coin can be minted by those that provide the utility to the network, the application builders, users, infrastructure providers. This creates a flywheel where more usage creates more demand for the Canton coin, which incentivizes more building, which creates more usage. Here's what potentially makes it undervalued at the moment. Most people are still focused on really speculative crypto. They don't fully understand a network like Canton. They're processing more real time financial activity than any other blockchain at the moment. Even if even if a fraction of that activity requires the Canton coin for payments. Now, let's be clear. I'm not telling you to go out and buy Canton coin. I'm telling you to understand what it represents. It's a utility token for institutional blockchain infrastructure, like others, such as XRP, Hedera, Stellar, and others. Before we wrap up, I need to talk to you about DAML. This is Canton's secret weapon that no one's paying attention to at the moment. Most blockchains use Solidity or other EVM compatible languages for smart contracts. Canton uses something entirely different: digital asset modeling language. The DAML was designed from the ground up for multi party financial workflows. It sounds similar to Chainlink's runtime environment. I'm not sure yet. We'll find out. It has native privacy where parties can only see their part of the contract. It has native authorization where multi parties must approve state changes. It has native composability across different ledgers. Now, in Solidity, if you want to create a contract where party A and party B must approve before party C can access the funds, you're writing some pretty complex authorization logic. In DAML, it's just how it works by default. DAML contracts are portable. The same DAML code can run on different Canton sync domains without modification. This means institutions can basically write business logic once and deploy it across multiple blockchains while maintaining that consistent behavior. Here's why that matters. Financial institutions care about the correctness, they need auditability, and they need regulatory compliance more than they care about gas optimization. DAML optimizes for all of those things. Solidity optimizes for decentralization. This is Canton's most technical moat. Even if competitors copy the proof of stakeholder consensus or the global synchronizer architecture, they still need to rebuild the entire DAML ecosystem. This is their native smart contract language for developer tools, the application for years to come. So we talked about the technology, the partnerships, the funding, but here's what really matters: that network effect. Canton Network has over 700 connected firms. That includes banks, trading platforms, asset managers, crypto companies, infrastructure providers. They're not all using Canton the same way, and that's the point. Deutsche Group is using Canton for custody and post trade infrastructure. You have others that are using it for securities lending. I think Cumberland is providing liquidity for tokenized assets. I think Chainlink is providing Oracle services. Each firm adds a piece of the puzzle. This creates network effect, and it's powerful. Every new institution that joins Canton makes the network more valuable for everyone else. More counterparties, more liquidity, more atomic cross chain opportunities. Here's the killer insight: institutions don't want to be the first mover in blockchain, they want to join a network where their counterparties already are. Canton has achieved that at critical mass. When HSBC joins Canton Foundation, it's not just about HSBC, it's about HSBC's hundreds of institutional clients who now have a clear path to tokenize assets and connect to Canton's ecosystem. This is how the standard is now born. Now, through committee meetings and government mandates, the network effects, and Canton is becoming the standard for institutional blockchain infrastructure, whether the community acknowledges it or not. I hope that you enjoyed this session and have a good day.